Something is wrong with the interstellar object Atlas, and the more we observe it, the worse it gets. This isn't just unusual. This isn't just unexpected. This is an object that systematically violates every established pattern for how space objects behave. Let me walk you through what's wrong. Space is three-dimensional. Interstellar objects can approach from any angle, above, below, from any side. Atlas came in perfectly aligned with our planetary disk, within 3 to 5 degrees of the ecliptic plane where all our planets orbit. This is the optimal trajectory for visiting multiple planets in one pass: Mars, Venus, Earth, Jupiter, all accessible with minimum energy expenditure. And the timing? Atlas passed within tens of millions of kilometers of Mars and Venus, made close approaches to Jupiter, while being completely hidden from Earth at perihelion. Maximum planetary access. Minimum Earth observation. This is what should happen if you're designing a mission. This is what is happening with Atlas. Water ice should dominate in a normal comet. Comets are fundamentally frozen water with dust mixed in. Atlas contains only 4% water by mass. It's almost completely dry. The gas around it, dominated by carbon dioxide at an 8-to-1 ratio over water, exactly backwards from expected composition. Then there are the metals. Nickel and iron appear together in space rocks. They're chemically paired. Atlas has much more nickel than iron, ratios that match industrial alloy production on Earth. The specific signature appears in controlled manufacturing processes, not natural cosmic formation. This is what should happen in a factory. This is what is happening with Atlas. At perihelion, Atlas got brighter and bluer than the Sun. The physics here is straightforward. Hot objects glow blue. Cold objects glow red or emit in infrared. Atlas's surface temperature is calculated at 230 Kelvin, about 20 times colder than the Sun's 5800 Kelvin surface. Cold surfaces don't glow blue, yet Atlas does. Additionally, dust particles redden reflected light. Every sunset demonstrates this. Red because dust scatters blue wavelengths. Atlas has dust, but instead of reddening, it turned bluer. This is what should happen with high temperatures or artificial light. This is what is happening with a cold, dusty object. Between July and August, Atlas developed a jet pointing toward the Sun, an anti-tail, material ejected against solar radiation pressure. NASA confirmed to Congress this tail is abnormal. Solar radiation should push material outward. Pressure acts away from the source, yet Atlas pushed material sunward. Then at perihelion, Atlas exhibited confirmed non-gravitational acceleration. Something pushed it off its gravitational trajectory. If this comes from outgassing, from ice turning to gas and creating thrust, Atlas must have lost over 4 billion tons of material. That much mass ejection should create an enormous visible debris cloud. Images from November 5th showed a compact source. November 11th showed Atlas still intact as a single body. No fragmentation, no massive visible debris field proportional to the required mass loss. This is what should happen with rocket thrust or propulsion. This is what is happening despite insufficient visible outgassing. Recent images show jets extending millions of kilometers in multiple directions. At least 7 distinct jets, some sunward, some away. These jets represent billions of tons of material. To sublimate that much ice requires enormous energy. Energy comes from solar heating. Solar heating requires surface area to absorb radiation. The calculation is straightforward. To sublimate the observed amount of material, Atlas would need a diameter of 23 kilometers. Hubble measurements show 5.6 kilometers maximum. The object is 4 times too small for the activity it displays. The surface area simply doesn't exist to absorb enough solar energy. And despite this massive activity, despite jets spanning millions of kilometers, Atlas didn't break up. It remains whole. This is what should happen if internal power sources exist. This is what is happening despite impossible geometry for solar heating alone. These aren't isolated quirks. They're systematic violations occurring in the same object simultaneously. Perfect trajectory for planetary visits, industrial metal signatures, dry composition, blue color from cold surface, anti-tail pointing sunward, acceleration without proportional debris, insufficient surface area for observed activity, no fragmentation despite massive outflows. Each problem compounds the others. Each observation makes the natural framework more strained. And then there's the directional correlation. Atlas arrived from the same region as the 1977 WOW signal, the most credible candidate for an extraterrestrial radio transmission ever detected. Within 9 degrees of alignment, at every measurement, physics gets violated or bent to breaking points. The trajectory requires impossible coincidence. The chemistry requires unprecedented conditions. The blue color requires heat that shouldn't exist. The anti-tail was confirmed abnormal by NASA to Congress. The acceleration requires debris that doesn't appear in images. The energy budget requires surface area 4 times larger than exists. The activity requires fragmentation that didn't happen. One explanation requiring acceptance of extraordinary implications, or multiple explanations each requiring unprecedented processes never before observed, all happening simultaneously in one object. The alternative? Technology. Artificial propulsion, producing thrust without massive sublimation. Manufactured composition with processed metals. Designed trajectory optimizing planetary approaches. Active guidance with directional jets. Internal power eliminating dependence on solar surface area. One framework explains everything. The conventional framework explains nothing without invoking multiple unprecedented exceptions. The data demands explanation. The math doesn't close. The surface area doesn't exist. The debris doesn't appear. The fragmentation didn't occur. Something is fundamentally wrong with Atlas, and conventional science cannot account for what we're observing. This is what should happen if we're looking at technology. This is what is happening with Atlas. The rules aren't bending. They're breaking systematically, repeatedly, unmistakably. And the more we observe, the more rules shatter.